Welcome to the latest edition of the Legal Authority Podcast, presented by TheLegalAuthority.com. Here are your hosts, Jay Rathman and Judith Goldberg.
So on this episode of the Legal Authority Podcast, we're going to talk to a special guest. Rick Davis will be joining us from the Davis Law Firm in Greenville, South Carolina. He's got a great perspective on what it's like to start a firm and manage a firm and have some success with it. So excited about that, and you two will have a great conversation, I'm sure. So let's go ahead and get it started.
Oh, looking forward to it. Yes.
All right, let's go.
Okay.
Hey, Judy.
How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you. Welcome to another edition of the Legal Authority Podcast. I am Jay Rathman, along with my esteemed co-host, Judy Goldberg. How are you today, Judy?
I'm doing great.
Yeah. What'd you do this weekend? Anything fun?
Oh, well, I'm in Florida, so it's a resort.
It's always
constant.
Fun.
It's always fun.
It's always fun. No,
dancing, salsa's my game. So.
Yep, I can't dance. I have two left feet, so that doesn't work. But anyway, I'm really excited about today's show because we have a special guest that I'm really excited about, and I'm really glad that he had the time and was willing to come on the podcast. His name is Rick Davis. He is the founder of the Davis Law Group there in Greenville, South Carolina. And, I got to point something out. I always thought Greenville was a small market, because technically in the city of Greenville, there's just not a lot of people. But it's a huge metropolitan market. I think there's like 1 million people because there's they call it the tri-state or something. And I spent a little bit of time there. It's pretty cool. But this gentleman, Rick Davis, built a really successful law firm, and they're doing great. We happen to work with them at Digital Horsepower, so we know them well. And anyway, let's go ahead and bring him in. Rick, how are you this morning?
Good. I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. So again, as we've talked about, the whole point of the Legal Authority Podcast is to really give a perspective to the attorneys that are listening, whether they are young attorneys working for someone that they're just thinking about going to hang out their shingle soon, or if it's a sole proprietor or sole attorney, solo practitioner, I think is the term you use, Judy, or just they own a small law firm and they want to build and be successful. And we just thought that the best way to do that would be to have Judy on because she's gone through it. And she's got that perspective, and she's super successful and ended up retiring early because of it. And having you on, you have your perspective as well. I think it could be really amazing content for the attorneys that are listening. So without any further ado, let me shut up. Go ahead, Judy.
Tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. Again, I've been working with Jay a couple of years with Digital HP. That's how we got to know each other. And Judy, I do remember him telling me your story back when we first began, and that you had a successful practice. And so it's always fun to be able to talk to somebody who really enjoys both practicing law and has done a good job of it. And that's what's been my goal throughout my career. I've been practicing law for 40 years in Greenville, South Carolina. And Jay, I know you put a pitch in for our upstate South Carolina area. So people know where we are. We're on the I-85 corridor between Charlotte and Atlanta. So we're about halfway in between those two towns. So, we can have pretty easy access to an airport. We're, 40 miles from the mountains and pretty close to Asheville and 200 miles from the beach. So it's a great area. And Greenville's a booming town. BMW is located here. We got a lot of industry, which is kind of dovetailed into my practice area where I make a living doing personal injury and mostly workers' compensation.
Right. I know you do some family law too, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I do. My son does the family law practice, which is, it's kind of my, I'm really excited about, I'm 64 years old. I'm really excited about continuing my practice for several reasons, but one of which is I'm getting to practice with my family, with my son. I don't know much about family law. He does, but he's gotten very good at it. And it's a lot of fun to be able to work with somebody that you've, raised and worked with your whole life. And plus I'll get to hand my practice to him, assuming he wants to continue doing this, which I think he will.
That's awesome. And for people that are listening that are geographically challenged like I am, you're literally like a stone's throw from Clemson University. It's like Clemson Tigers land.
Go Tigers.
Yeah, it's like it's all orange, and I spent a little bit of time there, and I remember that it's pretty cool. I went to one Clemson Tigers game, and I was hooked. I mean, there's nothing like 100,000 drunk screaming people that are more passionate about their college football team than they are about anything else. So.
No, you're right about it. We're very passionate about it. I mean, we don't have an NFL team in our state, and this has always been a college sports state. Again, we've got pretty successful universities. University of Georgia, 70 miles down the road, and then Clemson's here, and then University of South Carolina and Columbia, and they're doing pretty well. So we've got got a lot of things going on in this area. I finished Clemson in 1981, which was the year of our first national championship, and we've won 2 in the last 10 years. So we're doing okay.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, what was it that made you wanted to practice law? What kind of got you interested in the practice of law?
That is a great question. Let me give you a little bit of my background. I grew up in a blue-collar family. My dad and grandfather had a gas station, and they were mechanics, and I was the first person in my family to go to college. And they just knew that I needed to do something. I needed to have the tools to be able to do something better than what they had done. I always thought growing up it'd be pretty cool to work on cars all the time. Mm-hmm. And my dad finally said, "Look, it's tough to make a living doing that unless you're really going to go into it as from a business perspective. And you won't be the guy with the wrench in your hand if you're the one running the business." So he said, "Why don't you explore some other options?" And so he encouraged me to, when he would see a professional come into the gas station and that he knew, he would say, "Why don't you go meet them and talk to them about what they do?" And there was a couple of lawyers kind of took me under their wing, while I was pumping their gas, and had me come to their office and let me intern for them. And I got to really watch it from a boots on the ground perspective. Yep. And, I wasn't doing anything legal. I was just running a lot of errands, but I got to hang out and watch a lot. And that all went all the way through my undergraduate career at Clemson. And then I decided while I was at Clemson that I wanted to go ahead and go to law school.
That's very cool.
I ended up going to the University of South Carolina, but I came back home to Greenville because, one, I wanted to practice in my hometown where I've been born and raised. This is probably one of the luckier things that I did along the way, because I didn't really understand this at the time. But by coming back to Greenville, and with my dad and grandfather having had a business, even though they were mechanics, there were relationships all over town that kind of gave me an opportunity to get started. And it's that relationship, everything from being introduced to a lawyer to being able to come back and work with people that I knew and that I had business relationships with through my dad's business, enabled me to be able to see, okay, this is a good opportunity for a career. And as I look back, those relationships were one of the most valuable things that I ever did.
That's awesome. We have a similar story. My parents had an auto repair shop too. And I remember when I was in middle school, I was like, I think 11 or 12 years old. I would get out of school at 2:30 and I would walk down to my dad's shop, or he'd pick me up in his Jeep, and I would pump gas for the last 2 or 3 hours of the day. And here I was, this 10-year-old kid. You pull up to get gas. It was full service at that point. And I'm asking you to pop your hood. I'm checking your oil, and I'm checking your windshield washer fluid and all of that, and putting oil in your car when it needed, and pumping your gas. And people just thought that was a real hoot. Nowadays, you got people that they'd be crazy. What's an 11-year-old kid doing pumping gas? It's dangerous. But this was, when I was 11, that was almost when there was black and white TV, right? This is going back like 40 years, but it was cool. My dad used to pay me 75 cents an hour. It was less than the actual minimum wage, but I didn't have any bills. I lived at home, but I would make literally probably $10 a day in tips because people thought it was so cool. And so it was funny. It was really neat. So we have a little similarity there.
I see that it was really beneficial for you to have that relationship, as you describe it, coming back to your hometown, your father's business, your friends, your schoolmates, everything about it just works. I had a very different experience. I lived in New York. Law was a second or third profession for me, something I always wanted. And
you owned a hotel before you got into law.
I did, a Dude Ranch hotel with my husband, 10 years, which was invaluable because knowing business, how it operates, the ins and outs of a financial statement, building a business, marketing that business, selling that business as a kid, really gave me a wonderful foundation. But when I went to practice in Connecticut, a different state from where I socialized, lived, had contacts, here it was a very different experience. So fortunately, I was with a marketer as a senior partner, and he worked on the brand, went on TV, started to market. But that was before digital marketing, so everything was paper. And I got out there.
Like Yellow Pages.
Oh, yeah. And I formed some professional women's organizations so I'd get known. So it was hard, but it's doable. It's doable, especially if you're in a small town. And I was in Danbury, Connecticut, so it wasn't as if I was opening in Manhattan, in New York City. So that was great. So did you go in with a firm initially, or did you just open and yourself and
I did with two lawyers that were 10 years my senior. They had taken over practice from an older fellow that had passed away, and they just knew they had too much business, and they came down and interviewed at the law school and hired two of us at one time. So they doubled the size of the firm in one day. And I practiced with those folks for 35 years until my son and I spun off and did our own deal. My old practice didn't have any family law practice at all, and my son really wanted to do family law work, and he's very good at it. And it was either to let him go out on his own or he and I do it together. And as I said earlier, I couldn't think of a better way to go into my golden years of practice than being able to work with my son, who I love and I really respect, what he does and how he does it. And I sit and listen to him, and I'm thinking, he didn't learn that from me. That's pretty good.
Well, if he makes a mistake on a case, you don't ground him, right?
No. My grandchildren would come and torture me if I did.
Uh-oh.
Can you speak a little bit about that transition for you? Working in a firm, did you have to do marketing or handle the business aspect, or just be a lawyer? I know with myself, I really just wanted to practice law. I wanted to get out there, litigate my cases, loved trial work, and it was almost emotionally painful for me to really address doing business. But that was so important to keep this is a business. How was your experience?
Well, and that's a great question. And I'm not a great manager. I mean, particularly when it comes to personnel issues and that sort of thing, I want people just to kind of manage themselves. And things are not always going to work out that way. And you've got to recognize your limitations and find somebody that can help you do the things that you're not able to do. Another example of that would be, marketing, which is when I reached out to Jay and I said, we'd hired a local marketing firm, and I didn't know what they were doing and how they were doing it because I didn't know anything about internet marketing. But I just knew it wasn't working, after we made our transition, and which is when I had reached out to Jay and says, look, can you guys help us? Take a look at what we're doing. Let me know if it's effective, if it's not. And he was very honest with me. And he said, look, I'll give you an assessment. And if they're doing the good things that need to be done, then, at least you'll know that. And if not, You'll know that too. And so, a big part of our transition from my practice before was trying to surround ourselves with good people. I've had a very good CPA that I've been working with for years that kind of made sure that we had our structure up and in place and had our LLC in place. My son got all excited about shopping for a new building in the western side of town, which is where all the textile industry was back in the heyday. Then the third thing was to find people like marketing folks that could help us take care of the things we need to. And some of that was trial and error. I mean, I'll be honest with you, the same experiences that I had in my old practice with marketing folks continued on, later on. And that's why ultimately you've got to trust the person that you're dealing with, but you also, you also need to kind of pay attention to it to make sure that, what needs to be happening is actually taking place.
Rick, let me ask you a question. And I think this kind of fits with what you're talking about. Agreeing with what you said, I remember our very first conversation, and I just told you, and this is how we do this with anybody listening, reach out to us at the legalauthority.com/podcast, and we'll do an audit that will show you exactly where you stand, how Google sees your site, why it's working, why it's not working. And we get pretty detailed, if you remember. There are people out there that still believe that this doesn't work, that SEO doesn't work and whatnot. And I tell them till I'm blue in the face, if you give Google what they ask for, they'll reward you. What is your opinion on that now that you've actually started to see it work?
No, I agree with you 100%. Again, that's where you don't know what you don't know. And,
Right.
and that's where you've got to have somebody that you trust and that you feel comfortable in, by actually looking at the results and seeing where you are. And I know in our work with you folks is that, when I request it periodically, Stephen will send me a rank report and say, where am I ranking on these keywords? And I can go look because for example, in our family law practice, I can go look under custody in Greenville, South Carolina, and see where we are.
Killing it. You guys are doing fantastic in the family law keywords.
And the funny thing is that, and I think this is true I think it is a science, but there's a little bit of trial and error that goes on. I mean, with what you guys do, for example, you picked out insurance dispute lawyer for us as a keyword. Well, I would have, doing personal injury work, I wouldn't have thought about that, and next thing I know, we're ranked first for insurance dispute lawyer. And, and we get a bunch of calls and to me, those calls are the start of a relationship with people. And we talked about relationships earlier, but that's just another way that the marketing tool really evolves into something that you can, sink your teeth into and build a practice out of. Because even in probably one of the most important things I want to relate to your listeners today is that at the end of the day, even if you can't, quote, help somebody by winning their case, sometimes what we do is we educate people. And some of the most loyal people I've had along the way were the ones I sat down with. I listened to them. I said, let's think about it. Let me look at it if it was something that required research. And when I would tell them, look, you don't have a legal claim, okay, or you don't have one that's going to be, practical by the time you figure all the expense and the time involved.
Right.
But these are the things you do need to know and some things you can do otherwise, because we try to offer people alternate strategies. Maybe not litigating the case is the way to go. It may be writing a letter, maybe hiring somebody else to help them with whatever their issue is. But, again, those people, once you've kind of educated them, they become loyal to you. And then you've got another relationship there that you can build on.
Yeah, absolutely. And just touching on something that you had said earlier, you don't know what you don't know. My favorite conversation with lawyers, my favorite line is, let me give you a perspective. You're an attorney. You know how to practice law. You're not a marketer, right? So you think you might know because, everybody watches a couple YouTube videos and thinks that they have a master's degree in online marketing. But the fact is, if I was to go get myself in trouble in Greenville, South Carolina, should I go represent myself or should I call you?
You should definitely not represent yourself.
Exactly. Because I don't know what I don't know. I mean, I can't even write a motion. Like I could write it and it probably wouldn't make any sense. I know if to put it in that little blue folder thing or something, but I mean, I don't know what I don't know. Right. And I think if you just focus on what you're good at and surround yourself with people that are really good at the rest of it and you understand what they're doing, but you just let them do it, I think that's when you can really win. And whether that's marketing or anything else. I mean, I think, in a future episode, I know Judy's going to get pretty deep with her old paralegal. We're going to actually bring her in, her old legal secretary. And it's so important to have a relationship with your right hand and your left hand person to where they're really an extension of you. You can finish their sentences. They think how you think. They know how you think. It's just very fluid. And I think that's really important too, is the quality of those relationships.
And that's the support staff.
Yep.
Whether it's the digital marketing, which is what was a charm. Actually meeting Jay, and we have a very interesting story about that.
We do.
But that's in the paralegal, and if you have other associates, you have your son, which is wonderful. I had my daughter in the practice. She wasn't an attorney, but she gave me wonderful support staff. So, and in private practice, what I enjoyed most was the freedom to decide how I was going to practice, everything about my practice, how I was going to market myself. So what was your experience when you first went on your own?
Well, and again, I went in with a small firm, back in 1984, which is where I started. And then, and so they already had a kind of a book of business, if you will. It was a lot of individuals. And I took that those individuals, and I kind of stumbled into this over time because I came out of law school like a lot of folks do and think I knew it all. And then I was a lawyer now, and that just the business was going to fall in my lap. But, working in your practice and on your practice, are important. And, even though we don't like or want to do the management part of it, the relationships that you're going to develop and, again, over time, I mean, I've got people that I represented 35 years ago that are still calling me, asking me questions, referring me business. So I look back, that was the most essential key to getting everything off the ground, both when I first started practicing as well as my restart, 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm. So let's switch gears just a little bit, if we may, because I know that you've got an appointment soon that you have to attend to. What have you done or put in play recently to help develop consistent case flow to your firm, other than working with digital horsepower? I mean, obviously, we're able to help you flow some cases, but what else are you doing to generate new cases for your firm?
Well, and again, I try to. I don't do any of the digital or the internet marketing stuff without, getting input from somebody like you folks to advise me on what we need to do. But the other things that I do that I think are more practical that are that everybody that practices law should be able to do, and this probably applies to any business, but is, understanding that every person you come in contact with is a potential client. Yep. Jay and Judy, if y'all need somebody in Greenville, South Carolina, we've got a relationship now. You're probably going to pick up the phone and say, is this something you can help us with? If not, can you point us to somebody who can? Yeah. When you get that collect call from the Greenville Correction Facility, no, I'm kidding. I really don't get in that much trouble, but I would call you.
Not purposely.
I appreciate that. On a more basic level, everything from, where you attend church, going your Sunday school class, you develop relationships, you talk to people, but then on a more close level to being a lawyer is getting involved in the local bar association, volunteering to do things that don't take that much time, and you develop relationships with people that they might be a bankruptcy lawyer or a real estate lawyer, but they don't know anything about family law, or, they need. And people are going to refer to somebody that they've got a relationship with. And, there's some things I can do better. I mean, I've seen lawyers that are so dedicated over the years about sending birthday cards out to their clients. I wish I had done it. Mm-hmm. Over 40 years, I would have sent thousands out. But, that's one of the things I hadn't gotten around to that I want to do a better job of. But, the easy part for me is going out and being involved in boards and commissions and professional bar association groups. And I've found that to be just incredibly helpful.
Oh, that's awesome. And I know, obviously, we've had a relationship for a couple of years. I know how successful your firm is. And, you never know. Some of the attorneys that are listening, they may need some of counsel in South Carolina. So, if anybody wants to reach out to Rick and get to know a little bit more about him, it's davis.law is your website. And I'm quite proud of it because we built that for you. And, if you have direct questions, I mean, I'm sure that they can reach you right through your website on your contact us page.
Absolutely. And I enjoy, talking with people. And, that's the thing that another skill I think that people need to remember is when these people come in to talk to you, they're looking for somebody to listen. And, learn to be a good listener. We, as lawyers, we learn to be talkers, but the listening part is something that, whether I'm listening to the client or if I'm listening to Jay or I'm listening to, my CPA, being a good listener took me many years to do. And I still have some work to do on it, according to my wife, but.
So in closing, Rick, and if you have anything else to add, certainly by all means, but, what advice would you give to the attorneys that are listening that are either considering hanging out their shingle or, they've recently gone on their own or they just want to continue to build and expand their practice? What advice would you give them that could help them propel their firms forward and help them, be able to experience and taste some of the success that you've had?
Sure. No, a couple of three things, is one, remember as a lawyer that you're a problem solver. And people are looking for a strategy and a path forward. And if you can give them that, whether or not it's what they thought they were coming in to meet with you about to begin with, is important. Secondly, is make sure you've picked a practice area that you enjoy doing. Because if you don't like it, you don't love it. There's enough pain go around for everybody without having to deal with something where you're not happy doing it.
That makes sense.
Make sure you pick a niche that you enjoy. And then the third thing I would do, just kind of right off the bat, is get involved, get active, reach out. And, your circle of influence, as a lawyer, you have some influence. Yep. But, if you put it under a rock and nobody can see it, you're not benefiting yourself or anybody else. So get involved, again, like I mentioned, get involved in a local bar association, state bar association, trade associations. For example, I do a lot of workers' compensation work. And over the years, I've come in contact with a group of professionals known as nurse case managers, which the insurance companies hire them. And a lot of the guys on my side of the fence, on the plaintiff side, they don't like dealing with them because they see them as a spy for the workers' comp insurance company. But, what I tried to do was develop a relationship with them so that, one, I could try to trust them or at least figure out the ones I couldn't trust. Yep. And then secondly is I joined their professional association. And I'll go to the nurses meeting. I'm the only lawyer sitting in the room. I'm pretty proud of that. And awesome. And they have a lot of fun. They have a lot of fun at my expense too, but that's okay.
Well, it's like a roast of Rick every time you go, right? But
yes, a little bit.
That's awesome. Rick, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, just, don't procrastinate, look around, find good resources, ask questions, be a good listener, and get involved. And I think it'll really pay dividends for you down the road.
All right. That's awesome. Rick Davis from the Davis Law Group in Greenville, South Carolina. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate that. For anybody that wants to reach out to Rick, his website is davis.law. Anybody that would like to contact Judy or myself, it's the Legal Authority. thelegalauthority.com/podcast. If you have a question that you want us to cover on a future episode, or, anything that you'd like for us to take a look at, see where your online marketing is today, whatever, it's all right there. thelegalauthority.com/podcast. All of our socials are That Legal Show. So you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and so forth. And again, Rick, thank you so much for joining us today. I know how busy you are, and means a lot that you took the time out of the day to help us out today.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, folks. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Take care. Davis Law Group, Rick Davis, thank you so much. And, that's a wrap.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Great. Thank you, folks. Y'all made that easy.
Awesome. Well, hey, it's easy when you have a great guest. So thanks so much, everybody, for listening. And, make sure you like and subscribe so that you're notified for every new episode. You can also do that at thelegalauthority.com/podcast. I'm Jay Rathman.
Judy Goldberg.
We'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to the Legal Authority Podcast. As always, you can hear us wherever you get your podcast. Please also make sure that you subscribe so that you're notified for each new episode. If you have a question that you'd like answered on the show, or to talk directly to Judy Goldberg, just go to thelegalauthority.com/podcast. Until next time.